recently had a conversation with Jeff Schiefelbein. Jeff is the co-founder and chief culture officer at Five, an energy advisory firm that's been tremendously successful. I asked Jeff to just share his story, and he talks about a time in college that, well, it's just powerful. You got to listen to this. I know you'll be blessed by it. All right, Jeff, thank you, man, so much for being here. I'm so excited about this. Let me first kind of tell anyone watching who you are. Jeff Schiefelbein, co-founder and chief culture officer at Five.
That's right.
So number Five, which you figured out how to trademark. Five is a tremendous company, received a lot of accolades, Inc. 5000, best places to work, all of that. You are also a very proud Aggie. I'm a big Texas A&M fan. I got a niece who's a freshman at A&M right now. You guys, we got to improve your football team a little bit, but man, it's a good school. You and I have gotten to know each other a little bit through Conscious Capitalism, and we haven't spent a lot of time together, but the few times we've been together, I told my team, I'm like, this is a guy, when we started talking, we just went deep fast.
That's right.
And it just have so quickly come to respect you and your depth of insight and wisdom. Man, thank you for agreeing to let me record our conversation.
Shane, what an honor. And I can remember that first time I ever talked to you. It was after an evening event, and we did go very deep. So this just seems like the natural progression of a friendship that continues to flourish on both sides. So thank you for the opportunity.
One of the things that I just love asking people is just tell me your story. And what I found with people that have had any kind of success in life, their story always includes some thing of like, man, I went through this. I did not like it at the time. It was hard, but now I'm so grateful for it. And so if you don't mind, like, just kind of tell us your story.
Shane, I love this question. And I think you're right. There's a common thread with all of us. Here's my story. I was the youngest of 4 kids growing up. In fact, when we moved to Texas, I was 5, and my family found Texas A&M for my oldest sibling. And it just seemed like a place that fit our family. People were just nice to us. They were nice to me as a 10-year-old kid when she started school there. Well, anyways, we had nonstop overlapping kids at A&M for something like 48 semesters. So my parents are like parents of the decade, right? So here I am, the youngest kid. I came in with more credit hours than any of my siblings, but somehow took the longest to graduate. But the thing that I stood out for the most was probably being the wildest, kind of that feeling of invincibility that I had as a good kid who was a little bit of a punk. And so part of that was I got into kind of the drinking and partying scene heavily. And I ended up, when I was a sophomore at Texas A&M, getting arrested for driving while intoxicated one night. And by the grace of God, I had been speeding, but not in a car accident. And I say that because I'm so grateful that I didn't hurt anybody. And I can remember being in jail that night thinking to myself, this is crazy. My parents raised these great kids, and here I am sitting in a jail cell. And so I changed my life that night. And it was really hard to explain that to everybody else because, of course, their youngest just got out of overnight in jail. As part of my process for pleading guilty as soon as I could, I was guilty of the crime. I pled guilty. I wanted the consequences and the punishment. I went to, all sorts of meetings, fines and fees, and then a victim impact panel by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And this was November 11th of 98. I share that with you because it's one of the most important moments of my life. This mom was speaking about the death of her daughter who had been on the side of the road changing a flat tire when a drunk driver hit her. She was in high school. And as the picture that she had of her daughter came to me, I can tell you what seat I was in. I can tell you everything about this moment because I got hit by an epiphany from God. And as I passed this on, I can remember thinking, she looked just like a friend of mine growing up. What's the difference between her and my friend? What's the difference between me and the person who killed her? And I couldn't come up with anything other than here I was. So I felt called to go and do something. And fast forward to pretty much an hour's worth of stories I could tell you. A year later, I launched a program at Texas A&M that was a 501c3 nonprofit organization and a student organization that had 500 people applying for 300 spots through competitive interview and applications so that they could give up their nights and weekends to drive other people home in an environment that allowed those folks to feel safe. And I launched this program. It's a really long name. It's CARPOOL, the acronym, but it stands for Caring Aggies Are Protecting Over Our Lives. Shane, within 3 months, it became the most successful designated driver program in a college town in America. and it was noted by people all over the US. I was a good kid making a stupid mistake. And so I made sure that my story was front and center to all of the recruiting, to all of the messaging, to all the corporate sponsorships. And so fast forward, it was that arrest that caused me to become a leader of a nonprofit. I then launched a second nonprofit and brought my model to other schools all over. I know you're not too far from this one. My second program ever was at the University of Georgia. It was Watchdogs. And now there's dozens of these. And I realized very early on that I was maybe just driven by something about the way organizations develop and human beings develop, and getting the very best out of people and creating a culture where people say, I get to go work tonight, not I have to go work. In fact, the members of that organization paid student fees to be members of it. So they didn't get paid for their work. They paid to give up their nights and weekends.
Wow.
And they were excited about it because they were part of something that had a bigger vision than them and a common vernacular. Anyways, hugely successful. To date, 22 years old, Carpool's provided almost 300,000 rides home, not to other bars, clubs, or parties, for people in need. If you take all the other programs, we're probably well over a million rides home. And it all stems from that moment. And I got to tell you, the rest of my life kind of just keeps trickling in place. At first, people thought I was a nonprofit expert. I'm not. I'm a people expert. I'm a culture expert. I realized as a young 20-something, I was sitting in rooms full of boardrooms full of men and women that were 20, 30, 40 years my senior. And I was watching them make mistakes that I knew weren't going to play out the way they expected. And it was from this kind of take my 10,000 hours and cram it into just a few years of launching this program. The program also allowed me to then be a guest lecturer. At 22 years old, I was lecturing in college classes. I continue that today. I then went on the circuit. I do a lot of motivational speaking, and they named something after me at A&M. They named a freshman orientation camp in 2008, Camp Schiefelbein. It's where I ended up meeting a young counselor named Amanda Brown. And when that whole camp was over, I told her, I'm pretty sure we're supposed to get married, so we should probably start dating. And this shy little girl is now my wife and the leader of my giant family. So the worst moment of my life, sitting in that jail cell crying like a baby, has turned into business opportunities, to personal growth, to a chance to go deeper in faith, and then has just unfolded just moment after moment. So I think it's one of the most crucial pieces of the story of who I am and how I came to be a leader of my organization here or in all the nonprofits that I touch as well.
Man, that's such a great story, and so many things I'm thinking as I'm hearing that. One is where you started is the gratefulness of, like, I mean, it was bad. Like, 20 years old in a jail cell, but wow, it could have been so different.
Right.
Right. And I think all of us have those things that we go, there by the grace of God. Like, I was given this opportunity through this. This could have been, so much different. And one of the things too, though, that you and I didn't talk about this beforehand, but I want to see if you have a thought on it. One of the things that I've found for people who have a lot of success is often they've been able to come in touch with something that is their passion. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not just right. It's not just a job. I'm not just trying to build a company, make a lot of money, whatever. It's they have somehow figured out that thing that they're passionate about. And what I heard weave in your story was, it wasn't just that you were passionate about making sure people were safe instead of driving drunk. That it really instilled the discovery of the passion that it was really about people.
100%. And I love that you picked this out of here, because this drives me, right? It's this human flourishing component, or even more so, the formation of human flourishing, that I love, because I made so many rookie mistakes early on. Mistakes like, I have to know everything had to go through me. Because of that, I was exhausted and hospitalized at one point. And I started through, like, natural law learning that that's not a good way to lead. Right. That the cult of personality and the being the smartest person in the room are two terrible ways to build up a team that can A, flourish, but B, outlast the founder, right? I had to graduate. Then we have 100% turnover of this organization every 4 years. So I quickly shifted the whole model. It was about extreme empowerment, right? The subsidiarity of giving people the utmost autonomy and responsibility to do something that they are capable of doing, treating them like fully formed adults. making them know that if you're aligned with the vision of where we're going and you can adhere to these values that we hold core to our beliefs, then you can do whatever you want in between. You're not going to sink the ship if you try a different mechanism, or you do a little bit different messaging, or you set up the operations differently. And there's really cool breakthroughs in technology that people have had in leadership. And what I love is watching that when you give people that much responsibility and you trust them and you tell them you trust them, to just see them come into who they're supposed to be, right? To be the best version of themselves. I get it. I get a lot of passion out of that. It is exciting for me to watch that. And you're right. One more comment I think about the gratitude. I got to spend that night in jail. I didn't have to, you know, like I know they arrested me, so technically I have to, but the mindset that I got to go to jail was so much better than the alternatives that it makes every day a blessing that we get to right? Get to deal with some hard stuff in our jobs or whatever. But yes, I have a passion for people and the development of people within an organization.
Yeah, it's awesome. A lot of good stuff in there for young leaders. And by while you're talking, I'm having all these flashbacks because I love seeing, students, people in their 20s, whatever, starting things and leading things. Like a similar set of experiences and similar set of mistakes of like, I know I need to be the one that knows it all. I have to have all the answers, whatever. And it's typically the exact opposite,
Correct.
But also developing that discernment to know, okay, when can I allow people to do something that I don't think is the right thing versus when do I need to insist on it, right? It takes a lot of maturity and that awareness of what you're trying to do with other people, guys, that's huge.
Shane, I knew when I was in the hospital for about 5 days with an exhaustion condition, basically, that I'd become a liability to my own organization. I never wanted that. I want to be an asset. I want to be a value add. But if you're the one person that knows everything and has to control everything, the organization is only as good as you and only as healthy as you. And that is not what we're meant to be. We're meant to be multiplicative, right? We're supposed to co-create together in something special.
If you're a leader, the organization is only as healthy as you. That's a great quote. Completely agree.